When I was a caddy, a young caddy, back in the early 1960s, in a desperate attempt to fund my own golf game, there were three principles which were regularly drummed into me. Those three were show up, keep up, and shut up. I could honestly say that other than once when I was delayed by a puncture on my bicycle, I showed up and was ready to go even before the player was. As far as the other two were concerned, keeping up and shutting up, they were relatively easy because the golf bags in those days were quite light, especially compared to the monsters of today. And in most cases, the players never asked me for my opinion on anything or indulged in much in the way of small talk. It probably never occurred to them that I was playing at that time off a relatively low single-figure handicap and that I might possibly have something beneficial to say. There were times when I was thinking, wait a minute, you intend to play a fade over that big tree and you're telling me to give you a 4-iron. With the flag tucked in behind that bunker, you're thinking of aiming for the top of the bunker and playing a pitch and run shot? You'll either end up in the bunker or you'll be over the back of the green. Back then, it wasn't the caddy's job to input things like distance to the target, wind direction. Was the player always right? No. But remember, I knew the course well. And wind direction, well, that was easy. You just licked your finger, stuck it up in the air, and that told you where the wind was coming from. And on the greens, what were my responsibilities? Get the flag, don't stand on the player's line or in their view, stand still, and then on the odd occasion when the sun shone, make sure your shadow doesn't land on anybody else's line. The principle then was that the player was responsible for his or her performance. Which brings me to the point of this video. At a time when fans and players at the top level are complaining of 5-hour rounds and delays on every kind of shot, why do we tolerate so much player-caddy interaction? On tees, on fairways, and especially on the greens. In a recent tournament in America, I watched several interactions in excess of a minute, player-caddy standing still over the ball for more than a minute. And in two particular cases, it exceeded a minute and a half. What the hell were they talking about? When every player has a course map showing the locations of, the distances to, every bunker, shows greens profiles and hole locations. What are they talking about for these minute on a minute and a half? You may say wind direction. Okay, now the player probably has hit thousands of shots with every club in the bag into the wind, crosswind, downwind, on the practice area or in previous competitions. The player must be able to compute, okay, this shot is into the wind, it's normally a 7-iron, it's a 10km/h wind, that could take 2 meters off, and there will be less run when the ball hits the green. I think it's a bit sad that players appear to need their hands held over every shot that they play. But the most bizarre situation of all, in my opinion, is on the greens, where the caddy is seen reading putts, walking the length of a putt, even standing in and simulating the putt that the player is about to take. and then forming a committee of two before the player finally hits the putt. Why is the caddy even allowed on and allowed to remain on the green? Okay, if the player thinks the ball is muddy, let him give it to the caddy, get it back immediately, and then get on with the putt. That's his job, and that's what he should be doing. There is no need for a caddy on the green, any caddy on the green. In the old days, caddies would rake the bunker after the player had hit, but that apparently does not always happen today. So would it be unreasonable to go back to the old show up, keep up, and shut up standard for caddies? Here are some suggestions. On the tees and in general play, no caddy should be allowed to carry or refer to any on-course related data separate to that carried by the player. He shouldn't have his own book, for example. He shouldn't perform measurements such as pacing out away from the ball location to indicate the distance to the hole, to the green, or to the location of any fairway hazard. Only if requested by the player, a caddy should provide comments related to estimated wind direction and strength. When it comes to the situations on the greens, when both or all players have played onto the green, other than cleaning a ball and returning it to their player, all caddies should remove themselves from the green until all players have putted out. Caddies should not be allowed to provide any opinions, any comments, any hand gestures, or any simulation of any stroke or body alignment relating to any putt that any player is facing. Some other time-saving suggestions might be, once a player has played their first putt on any green, that player should be required to continue putting until they hole out. And any ball coming to rest within 3 feet of the hole in any direction should be considered live, as it would be on a fairway, with the player required to putt out without marking or lifting and replacing the ball. Too much time is wasted on putts of 2 and 3 feet long. Let me ask you a question. Is there any other sport where the level of hand holding, such as we see in pro golf, is tolerated? Cricket? No. Snooker? No. Bowls or bowling? No. Soccer? No. Do you see a kicker in the AFL, the NRL, or the NFL getting on-field advice before they kick? No. So why should it happen between a player and a caddy? My old high school in Edinburgh was built in 1560 at the edge of what is called Leith Links. And there is historical evidence that Mary, Queen of Scots, played golf there in the 1570s. It is said that Mary, Queen of Scots, was instrumental in the development of the word caddy because she employed the services of young military cadets to go and get the ball and bring it back to her so she could have another shot. She's also accredited in the development of the word of the warning for, because she would have a second team of caddies down the length of where she was intending to hit. They were called the four caddies. And any ball that she hit that was going towards one of those four caddies, the warning would be shouted, "For caddy," and eventually that was modified and reduced to the simple usage of the word for. There is no record of Mary Queen of Scots ever having received advice from any of her caddies. Her shots were her responsibility. And I wonder what she would think of today's hand-holding between caddies and players. Time to change, perhaps.